Hello there and welcome back to Scotty Holiday 2. I'm Scotty Holiday and today we're going to be talking about Disney's first slasher, episode 3 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And people were complaining about the TV-14 rating. They better not be complaining now. This episode was insane and in a great way. My anxiety was through the roof. I could feel my heart in my stomach and I loved every minute of it. I never thought my love of slashers and Star Wars would overlap, but here we are. There was a lot that I loved about this episode, and while it may not have been the highest quality looking episode, it definitely had my heart racing and I was on the edge of my seat for almost the entire time. Before we jump into the breakdown, if you haven't already, please like the video and consider subscribing to my channel. I love our little queer Star Wars community and our allies, and I literally wouldn't be making content about Star Wars if it wasn't for all of your support. It means the world to me, and I want to thank you all so much. Now, let's get into this episode. We catch up with Obi-Wan and Princess Leia on their journey to Mapuzo on the cargo transport. Obi-Wan seems to be trying to meditate and reach out to Qui-Gon. Like, come on, Liam Neeson, I'm waiting at this point. We hear Reva's taunts about Anakin from the previous episode, lines from Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Anakin from their battle on Mustafar. Then, for the first time ever, we see Darth Vader being taken out of his bacta tank and assembled in his suit. I really enjoyed seeing all the pieces being fit together and attached to his body. It still makes me feel a little uneasy to watch, but I also think that's what makes it so good. We get our first glimpse of Vader's face, and he looks extremely menacing even without the helmet. I'm so glad we got to see Vader's castle again for the first time in live action since Rogue One as well. It seems Reva has contacted Vader directly about Obi-Wan's whereabouts and lies, blaming Obi-Wan for the Grand Inquisitor's demise? Vader cuts her off and the subtitles cut off after she says Grand Inquisitor's blank. So who knows what's going on with him. We learn that Reva's motivations are to become the new Grand Inquisitor, which Vader acknowledges and offers her if she's able to prove herself. I still feel like she really wants to be Vader's Sith apprentice, but we'll have to wait and see. We catch back up with Obi-Wan and Leia, and I still just love the relationship between these two. I am obsessed with Vivian Lyra Blair and her portrayal as Leia. She's doing a phenomenal job. I thought it was so cute seeing Obi-Wan fixing Lola, and I'm so glad to see him be the uncle he was always meant to be. When Leia asked Obi-Wan about the Force and what it feels like, it literally made my heart melt, and his answer was perfect. They finally arrive on Mapuzo, and I have to say this planet looks a lot like the planet we see in the Jedi Survivor teaser. The game and the series timelines overlap, so we'll just have to wait and see if they connect in any way. I'll put a link in the cards for my Jedi Survivor teaser breakdown if you haven't seen it already. Obi-Wan is not in a good headspace after learning about Anakin. He seems a lot less patient and on edge. This is pretty much confirmed when Obi-Wan sees a vision of pre-Vader Anakin in the distance, and even Leia notices something is off with him. Hayden Christensen looks so good in this scene, it was really taking me back to Revenge of the Sith. Next we see Reva arriving at the Fortress Inquisitorius and relaying the information from Vader to the fifth brother and fourth sister. Once again we can see the power struggle among the Inquisitors because the fifth brother also wants to be the new Grand Inquisitor. I'm curious if the other Inquisitors are suspicious about the Grand Inquisitor's supposed death, but I guess they don't really care since they're all trying to fight for that spot. I really don't know how they get anything done when they're always fighting with each other. The Fortress Inquisitorius looks great on the outside and mostly on the inside too. The scene of the probes being readied for launch looked a bit like a video game, but I loved everything else, especially the scenes in the office. Once Obi-Wan and Leia arrive at the coordinates given to them by Haja Estri, no one is there to meet them. Leia takes matters into her own hands and flags down a local driving by. The driver, Freck, offers them a ride to the spaceport and Obi-Wan reluctantly agrees. We see the Imperial crest on the back of this dude's ride and I knew exactly what kind of guy Freck was going to be. He's literally one of those old white dudes who drive a pickup truck with a giant American flag on the back with a "Don't Tread on Me" license plate. This is furthered when Freck starts talking to Obi-Wan and Leia about how much he loves the Empire. On their way, he picks up a couple stormtroopers whose transport is running late. They start talking about how they're looking for a Jedi, and if I was Obi-Wan, I probably would have tried to play it off and say something like, yeah, fuck the Jedi, like really obnoxious and end up looking insane. This got me a bit nervous for Obi-Wan and Leia, and then Obi-Wan accidentally calls her Leia in front of the stormtroopers. Obi-Wan plays this off by telling the troopers Leia is his daughter and that they recently lost her mother. He says he accidentally called her Leia because he sees her mother's face sometimes when he looks at her. I couldn't help but think he was really talking about seeing Padme and Leia again. It really breaks my heart every time he sees a piece of Padme and Leia, and I'm sure it breaks his heart too. Leia even catches on to this, and after the stormtroopers leave, she asks Obi-Wan if he knew her mother. Then, they were really trying to tear our hearts out when she asks if Obi-Wan is her real father. Obi-Wan's response of, "I wish I could say I was, but no, I'm not," was also so heartbreaking. He knows he'll never really get to have that relationship he should have had with Anakin and Padme's children, and on top of that, he also knows what and who her real father is. I think he also says he wishes he could say he was her father to save Leia from the truth of when she eventually finds out who her biological father is. Hearing Obi-Wan talk about his family and the faint memories of them before he was taken in by the Jedi Order and how they became his new family, just like the Organas to Leia, was so sweet. He's really the uncle she deserves. This sweet memory is then cut short when Freck pulls up to an Imperial checkpoint. I wasn't sure how they were going to get out of this, but Obi-Wan has become quite the sharpshooter. Also, the stormtrooper who got cut in half by the laser gate was literally a preview of the brutality that comes later. After they make it past the gate, we meet Tala, an Imperial double agent. She guns down her stormtroopers, and it turns out that she is actually the person that Leia and Obi-Wan were supposed to meet. Once the coast is clear, she takes them to the droid maintenance building, and we meet the coolest non-verbal droid, NED-B. Just like Leia says, I would love to know what NED-B has to say. Tala takes Leia and Obi-Wan to a secret backroom safe house, and we learn that she is a part of the Path, which is a group that helps Jedi on the run. This has got to be one of the coolest new ideas from the post-prequel Dark Times era, and I hope we learn more about it and see more of it in the future. Obi-Wan notices a message carved into the wall from none other than Quinlan Vos, and from the way Tala makes it seem, he's still alive and actively helping the Path. Some stormtroopers enter the droid maintenance building and try to question NED-B about the recent Jedi sightings. Since he is unable to communicate audibly, the stormtroopers leave. I love how he was also hiding a hammer behind his back just in case the troopers try to attack. He's definitely been added to my favorite droids list. From the banging on the door and the panic in Tala's voice when she says that they've been compromised, my blood started rushing. I have to say both Ewan McGregor and Indira Varma's acting in this episode is phenomenal, and I could really feel their sheer panic, especially through the end of the episode. Before they can leave through the tunnel to the ship that's waiting for them, Obi-Wan begins to feel something, or should I say someone. He begins breathing heavily, and we can tell by the look on his face that he senses an overwhelming dark presence that he's not felt since... See what I did there? He goes over to the window with Tala and Leia behind him. We hear screams in the distance and see the people of the village running into their homes. Stormtroopers are posted in the street and the Inquisitors walk in behind them. Then, we hear the iconic breathing of Darth Vader as we see his silhouette along a building, and the camera begins to slowly pan up until we reach his helmet. This whole build-up and the reveal of Vader felt straight out of a horror movie. The music felt so sinister, and I knew this wasn't going to end well. Not only was I worried for Obi-Wan, but I was even more worried for Leia. Vader pulls a man out of his home with the Force and begins choking him to death. As his child runs out after him, Vader slams them into the wall with the Force and snaps their neck. At this point, Obi-Wan knows he has no choice but to send Leia with Tala to guarantee her safety while he goes to lead Vader away. Vader then walks further down the path and grabs another person by the throat with the Force and begins dragging them behind him. This is the most brutal we've seen Vader on screen, and I was really surprised but so glad to see it. He was a hugely feared member of the Empire, and I'm so glad we got to see just how ruthless he could be. In these next scenes, we see Obi-Wan running and stumbling along the outskirts of town. I keep bringing this up, but the way these scenes were shot really made it feel like he was the final character in a slasher film running from the killer. When he finally comes face to face with Vader, the look on his face is one of sheer terror. I honestly don't think he can believe what he's seeing, and the fact that he knows that Anakin is inside that suit makes it so much harder. I don't blame him for running because at this point he knows Anakin has become a total monster. Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber for the first time in 10 years, and I think he knows he has no choice but to stand and defend himself at this point. Obi-Wan asks Vader, "What have you become?" And Vader responds with, "I am what you made me." At this point, I was feeling every emotion possible, and I really didn't think there would be a way for Obi-Wan to make it out of this alive. When we catch up with Leia and Tala, Leia begs Tala to go back to help Obi-Wan and that she can make it to the ship on her own. I'm really curious if something inside her, possibly the Force, was telling her that Obi-Wan may not make it out of this encounter alive. Back in the village, Reva finds her way into the droid maintenance building. We cut to Obi-Wan, who is still walking around waiting for Vader when he suddenly comes out of nowhere and they duel again for the first time since Revenge of the Sith. Vader completely overpowers Obi-Wan with each strike, and as he points out, Obi-Wan is a lot weaker than he used to be. Vader is able to push Obi-Wan to the ground, but Obi-Wan uses his lightsaber to cut a fuel line to obscure Vader's vision so he can get away. At this point, Reva has discovered the secret safe house, and while inside, she notices a Jedi crest carved into the wall. By her reaction, I'm really starting to believe that she was one of the younglings in the temple that we saw in episode 1, The Night of the Massacre. Next, we get back to Vader and see him using the Force to knock over a canister and hold Obi-Wan in the air in front of him with the Force. He uses his lightsaber to ignite the contents of the canister on the ground, and then he pulls Obi-Wan into the flames. He says he wants Obi-Wan to suffer and that his pain has just begun. After holding him in the fire, he decides to toss Obi-Wan's body aside and orders a stormtrooper to bring Obi-Wan to him. Tala has caught up to them at this point, and she actually shoots the stormtrooper, then shoots a nearby canister, causing an explosion. This allows NED-B to grab Obi-Wan so he and Tala can escape. I love these shots of Vader from behind and in front of the fire, especially the close-up where we can see the reflection of the flames inside of Vader's helmet lenses. He literally looks so fucking scary, and I love it. Major props to whoever shot those scenes. After Tala gets Obi-Wan to safety, we catch back up with Leia, who has made it to the other side of the tunnel. We hear a voice say, "Don't be afraid, come closer." And we all know that when somebody says don't be afraid, you better be afraid. When Leia asks, "Are you the one I'm supposed to meet?" it's revealed that the voice was none other than Reva's. The camera pans down to the lifeless body of the pilot, and as Leia tries to make a run for it, Reva follows, and then the episode ends. So what did you think about this week's episode and the duel between Vader and Obi-Wan? Were you surprised to see Vader be so terrifying and brutal? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter so we can chat more about it. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content. To keep up with my latest updates, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. The links are in the description below. Thank you as always for watching. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and may the Force be with you.